what if we set a detective story in a place where all the evidence might get washed away?
You need to face the idea of leaving this place.
We're at a vital stage of the investigation.
This storm doesn't care about your investigation.
When I read the first 2 episodes, I was not looking for a job. I was actually actively not looking for one, but my agent, who I trust very much and has been with me forever, read it and said, I think you're going to really like this. And I read it, and it was one of those things where I was reading it in the middle of the night and I couldn't stop reading it. It pulled me in, just like I actually think the show does pull you in. It's sort of a quiet, slow, insidious build. And I was sort of really taken and moved by Jackie, the character I play, and her plight to find the truth and how she is burdened by it.
So when I went about thinking up the idea for Under Salt Marsh, it really came from the salt marshes, and they're something that is very special to me. That the landscape and the area of North Wales where we shot is very meaningful to me. I've spent a lot of time there in the last 10 years. And I really wanted to set something in this place that is so beautiful and unique and rare to see on screen, and kind of mythologize it in a way and make it feel great. I had this idea of, if we set a murder story, a police investigation there on the salt marsh, you know, we had this opportunity to really look in detail at the place and the ecology and the plant life and the salt water and all of these aspects of it, while it being this exciting, propulsive story where we're trying to find out, you know, who the killer is. At the beginning, I was just commissioned to write a pilot. I'd pitched the idea, so I had the basics of the idea. I think my pitch was, it was like a one-liner, you know, what if we set a detective story in a place where all the evidence might get washed away?
It's about community, it's about a community under threat. It's about, you know, what people will do to protect themselves and their community. And Claire's writing so great, she's written these very complex characters. All of them have such a journey throughout the series, and you can't help but just lean into each one and try and kind of figure out what they're about and where they sit in that community. The impending storm is such a time pressure throughout the series that really kind of adds another layer to the story.
I found the characters very rounded and original, is what you look for, because even though this is a police procedural show at its heart, the whodunit, the thing that keeps you interested along with the plot is identifiable, rounded, fallible characters, all of whom think they're doing the right thing. And I think that's one of the things that's is pleasing to watch. Characters thinking they're doing the right thing but messing up along the way. Because I think that's identifiable. Because I think most people watching, we all think we're good people. Mm-hmm. And also we all know that we mess up.
Or we think we're doing the right thing, or we know what's best.
Exactly.
Or we're protecting our family. What do we want to know? What do we want to see? What we don't want to look at? It's all of that stuff.
Narratives are so important. We all tell ourselves stories, don't we? I think that these characters do that. And you can justify a lot in the name of your own personal narrative.
It's really compelling writing. Obviously, it kind of lives within a landscape of crime dramas that we make in this country, and we're quite prolific with them, and they're very successful, and for good reason. You know, I think we do them well. But of course, you're looking for an angle or an alternative kind of point of view, a different take on that kind of genre, and the characters are richly drawn, and the place itself feels really well realised, even though it's fictional. And there's this kind of environmental backdrop to the story. It really propels the narrative forward. It kind of defines the arc of the story, I think, and is a character in itself.
When we were preparing for the shoot, I did a lot of prep with my cinematographer, Adam Scarth, and mostly we would sit down with each scene and we would shot list. There were some days that it was so complex, what we were trying to achieve, that we knew we were only going to get like 4 setups that day. So we had to be highly planned about what the camera was doing what and capturing what. We had some really wide lenses, we had drones to be able to access areas that you can't access on foot. But then in terms of the characters, we wanted it to be this intimate story and be very responsive. So we used sort of quite classic framing for the characters. We used a lot of Steadicam, so we were able to move with the characters through spaces. In terms of the look, like, we kept on calling it like a heightened naturalism, where we wanted the skin colours and the landscape to feel very natural. but to have these like saturated pops of colour to like lift everything and brighten it. There are these like flashes of red through the show. I think there's a little thread of it there, and other like sort of sea-worn pastel-y colours that we wanted to use so it didn't all get too grey. I think with so many scenes set outside, and we had big emotional dialogue scenes set outside as well, it is risky and it's a bit scary because you don't know what you're going to get. You know, you ultimately end up with something that feels much more visceral for the audience and real and exciting, and yeah, I really like shooting on location.
It would have been quite different with like a green screen.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it's
it
more work for us, but
sounds kind of like corny, I don't know, but
yeah.
So much about acting is how far you're able to extend your imagination and how big those leaps are able to be. And if you're just in the real conditions and you can feel the rain on your face and the wind, like you think, well, all the heavy lifting is done, you know, in some ways.
We knew we had to flood a village, so we were going to build a set and flood it in a tank and flood it. But it so happened that when we were scheduled to shoot that, it was going to be January. Like, was this water going to freeze? Was anyone actually going to be able to stand in it for more than like 3 minutes at a time if it was so cold? We couldn't heat the water because then steam would rise off the water. And so all of these like logistic problems sort of are thrown up in the process of planning the shoot. And so often I would then have to go back to the scripts and tweak things or rewrite things, or you know, we wouldn't get permission to shoot a car crash on this piece of coast road, so I was able to adjust things to the reality of being able to shoot.
The script for me is sort of king or queen. I want to take as much as I can, drain the script of information and clues as much as I can, digest it, metabolize it, and then forget about it. So by the time I'm on set, I'm up for whatever present moment lands, right? I'm sort of the most fearless and trusting when action happens. And it's only afterwards that I start going, oh God, should it have been this? Maybe that would have been a better choice in that moment. But I think that's all work, isn't it? Afterwards you second guess yourself, but then there's great editors to sort of choose that, right? That's, you're not in charge of it. It's doing all the pre-work and lots of conversations with Claire, lots of conversations with Rafe, and then a digest, a living with it, letting it breathe in you, and then just allowing that to come out and not control it too much.
On this particular job, there was a few other kind of components to deal with. I'm speaking in a different dialect, and it wasn't a dialect that I'd worked in before. I'd sort of worked in similar kind of adjacent dialects, but not North Welsh, and so a lot of my work kind of got funneled into that, taking it as seriously as I can and trying to honour it and hone it as much as possible. For me, there's a pressure, okay, I've got to get this right first and foremost, otherwise nothing else can happen after that. And so you end up starting with the kind of external sort of like components of a character and then discovering the rest of it later. Costume was a big help for me as well. It's not clothes that I'd normally walk around in, and yeah, just getting in the environment, getting into the location, it all made it feel very lived in.
it's very collaborative before we got on set. But I think the big thing for me was just the environment. You know, I was staying up for the big chunk where we were in North Wales, and being in an environment like that, you know, you just immediately, it seeps into your skin. And then I know we had these huge rain machines and wind machines and flooding, and you know, you're kind of just immersed in that, and that was very real.
Yeah, that didn't require much work.
It also takes a long time, doesn't it? It takes a long time to get good at acting, I think. I think when you first start, you've got this sort of the innocence of it, a sort of fearless innocence, like a fearless naivety when it comes to approaching. And then you go through 20 years of that going, and then working out how to achieve the same thing with technique. And you've done that for that long, and you've been on screen for that long, you're that relaxed, you've done it for that many years, that you then get back to the place you were when you first started. But it needs to be broken down in order to get there in the end.
Yeah, and have a few failures in amongst them that you go, hang on, how could I? It's not about getting better. It's like how does a painter get better technically? Yes, you can improve on skills, but if anything, you just want to get back into some pure place where it takes you in a way.
It's just a clarity of communication, to be rather sort of, you know, highfalutin and a bit wanky talking about acting. You're trying to communicate. You're trying to tell a story.
Part of acting is completely up for humiliating yourself, and you don't know. And when you're working with someone who loves to who's okay with that, you feel okay with that. That's what I think it means, is that you come into work and we're going to go for something and we're going to commit to it. And I think that's for me where the magic can lie.
Great joy in my life is that I get this close to a brilliant actress like Kelly Reilly, and I'm able to see how she goes about it, and I find it to be a genuine thrill. This is going to sound really silly, but regard is so important in acting, is the way you look out your eyes, right? And a lot of people think that good acting is intensifying your eyes, and we never do that. You think, I'm being intense, but no one ever does that in real life. And sometimes just I've seen that one in the car, just the way that Kelly looked at me, just felt like it's pretty serious stuff. Not everyone can do that. Something as simple as that, the way that someone looks at you when there's a camera pointing at them. Because that's really hard. When there's a camera looking at you, you feel like you've got to do something. You feel like you've got to be interested.
Yeah, that's something I've definitely learned.
But that's an amazing, incredible skill. And so to be opposite something like that, that's pretty special. You know what? Even if people don't like the show, I still had that.
Oh.
We filmed in this. It's a sandy beach, but it's a forest. They kind of planted these pine trees there to help stabilise the sand dunes, and it's just astonishing. And we were filming kind of all day there. It was loads of background artists there that day, and it was just a huge rig of rain machines, wind machines size of a house, and I just remember being there like, everyone's got all of this up, and all these people are here. And we're doing the scene, which is probably going to be 10 seconds on screen, but it was just, there was something just quite special about everyone ending up in this sandy forest on the beach.
Yeah. To be involved in like infrastructure like that on a set is such a thrill.
Yeah.
The amount of times I've turned up somewhere, on this show especially, where you can't believe what you're seeing, and you can't believe that you get to be in the centre of that, you know.
Yeah.
And for me, you know, it sounds a bit of a rubbish answer, but I have such happy memories from this entire shoot. It was such a happy job. It was sort of surprisingly peaceful, given how kind of intense the material is. We were filming in some beautiful places with really kind, happy people, and it was just a great job. It was really great.
I feel like we both fell in love with Barmouth.
Yeah, the little town we were filming in North Welsh. I just completely fell in love with it, and it was such a happy time in my life. So I look back on the whole thing really positively.
With the town of Morphethallen, we wanted it to not be too sort of predictable and too twee. I'd been to lots of towns and villages up and down the North Wales coast, and there's a lot of really interesting architecture, people who have, you know, maybe escaped from Liverpool, Birmingham, big city life, and have built their like dream homes on the coast. And they're quite eccentric and strange and bold, and the colours are a bit mad, and I wanted to bring some of that quirk and colour into the place. We also wanted the village to have been there for a long time, and like the core of the village, we wanted to have that old traditional sort of butcher, fishmonger type of feel. And I wanted it to make sure that there was water everywhere, because you know, water features quite large in the story, so it had to be on the edge of the sea, had to be on the edge of the marsh.
It's a ticking time bomb, I think, for the characters and for the stakes that they're all dealing with, and it threatens to wash away evidence, you know, criminal evidence first and foremost, but also like there's something more metaphorical there. It will wash away perhaps things that people would be happy to see long gone, you know, past traumas and secrets, but also wash away something that's so crucial to who they are, you know, their identity. You know, these are people of the earth, people that have a connection to the soil, to the marshland that they live on, and they're resistant to change. They're resistant to being told that they have to leave their home, as anyone would be.
The place that you're from, especially with a small community like that, it is your identity, and this is a town that's under threat, and their way of life and their dynamic is under threat. There's a real resistance to leaving or to changing, and I guess you kind of see in the show, Claire's written so beautifully, everyone has their own way of trying to protect that.
I think we all understand how much we want to protect the ones we love in our life, and the idea of protecting a place that you love, and that's why it was so important that this community and this town and this land that they love, and it is worth protecting, and that was shot so beautifully. Jackie's protecting a child There's and people not wanting to look at their own family members. Could we be blinded by our love for people to not see the truth? So I think protection is such a massive human instinct, and what we would do to protect the ones we love, it's one of those things, isn't it? There's no boundary.